She's terrified, not sure of what's there, but she knows it's something just beyond the door. She wants to call somebody, let them know where she is, have them call the police so they knock on the door, and when nobody answers, they break it down. But she can't. The landline is in the room over. She's trapped in her 4x4-meter bedroom. Crawling over to the far corner of the room, she shoves herself in between the walls. That's when the door handle starts to rattle, and a low growl begins. She imagines the thing's teeth dripping blood. The blood of the most recent victim. A victim that hasn't claimed its hunger or its bloodthirsty tendencies. She imagines its gray fur, mud-stained and matted in clumps of knots and broken ends. Its 8-foot figure, looming above her as it draws its claws and looks at her with its dark eyes and its sickening grin. The creature of her nightmares. Looking around the room, she desperately tries to find anything to use to defend herself, but nothing is coming to mind. Until the digital clock beside her bed gives her an idea. She knows it can't be used as a weapon, but it lingers in her gaze and she thinks of another use for the timekeeper. Turning her head, she sees the bedroom window. It sits about halfway up the wall, and below it is the bed. It's a convenient view to look at when she can't sleep, and convenient for escaping. Without a second thought, she dashes for the clock, picks it up in her hands, and throws it at the window. Perhaps she should have used the lamp. Could it have been too heavy for her? No. She couldn't have thrown it that far even if she wanted to. She closes her eyes tight shut and just hopes that the clock is heavy enough to make an impact on the window. The plan is successful, and the glass shatters, falling from the space in every direction. The object continues along its path as if nothing had been blocking its way in the first place, and she climbs up onto the bed, planning to follow it in its footsteps. Edging closer towards the open space, the familiar 2 stories of height to the ground making her hesitate, she starts to think twice about her options. That's when the banging on the door begins to start. Her head whips around, and she sees with each thump the door seems to get a little looser on its hinges. Turning to look out the window once again, she is almost wanting to do it, knowing that she would rather die like this and be ripped apart by whatever lingered outside. The door behind her gives way, then swings open. The panic starts to rise in her, but she dare not look at the creature that's just entered the room. She hears it walking towards her, feels its breath on her arm, and suddenly, with a mind controlled by fear, she leaps out the window. Time seems to slow down. She sees the houses across the street, the set of swings in the front yard where she used to play when she was younger, the neighbor's dog, watching with wide eyes while she falls. And then, she doesn't see anything at all. Instead, she feels it. A crunch, and then another. And then another, and then nothing. There is nothing for her. The parents of Alison Sanders had found the window to their daughter's bedroom shattered the next morning, and had been beside themselves when they leaned out and saw her lying there in the front yard. Mr. Sanders had gone down the stairs and outside, while Mrs. Sanders had immediately dialed the emergency number, asking for the ambulance. Alison was unresponsive, and from the way the morning sun was casting beams of light through the trees, it looked as though she was Sleeping Beauty. waiting for her true love's first kiss to come and bring her back to life. When the ambulance arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Sanders were in the front yard, cradling their 12-year-old daughter in their arms and crying. The paramedics looked at her and had come to the conclusion that she had passed away hours before the parents had found her. Most likely the fall from the bedroom window was the cause of death. The police arrived and the parents were questioned on whether or not Alison had been suicidal or dealing with anything at school. Whether the school bullies had pushed her too far the day before.
No,
said Mr. Sanders.
But she did suffer from these reoccurring nightmares. In the dream, she would be trapped in her room with no one else in the house. And this creature would be waiting outside her door, trying to get in. She would act out these nightmares while they were happening, but we would usually wake up before she did anything to herself. It was never this bad.
After that question, the detective had what he needed. All the evidence was there. They found fingerprints, traces of sweat where the girl's body had been pried up against the wall, the place where the digital clock had been before it was thrown out the window. Everything added up that Alison was having a night terror and had acted it out, jumping out the window. However, there was only one thing the detective couldn't work out. Something that made him stop and think twice about the situation. Alison's bedroom door had been locked at the time of the accident, yet it was swinging open, the lock broken, and the hinges weakened, almost as if something had forced its way in. Upon further analysis, the detective found a bunch of hair at the threshold of the room. It was gray, stained in what looked like mud, and matted in clumps of knots and broken ends.